apparently I had everything I wanted in my life because I had a good job, I had a good family, a lot of friends and everything, but inside I felt really empty. And that was a moment that I met an executive coach, a leadership coach, and that in that exact moment I said, one day I'm gonna do what she does.
Welcome to Who Cares About My Story, the podcast on how sharing your personal brand story can impact your business. We will explore the perks and also the behind the scenes challenges of figuring out what to share. I'm your host, Reme Mancera, a personal brand strategist who loves finding the story connectors that illustrate the benefits of what you offer. And by the way, you don't need a Hollywood style for that. In case you ever wonder, remember, your story is relevant and worth telling. Welcome to Who Cares About My Story. I am so delighted to have you here, Adriana. Welcome to this podcast and thank you for accepting this invitation.
Well, hello, Reme. I'm very, very excited to be here with you and spending some time talking together.
Nice. So let's start by sharing a bit about who you are and what you do.
Yeah, well, I'm Adriana. I live in the south of Spain, in front of Morocco. I'm lucky enough to have the sea in front of my office. And yes, I'm a leadership coach. It's 5 years that I've been coaching people all around the world. I say I coach leaders because I think that leaders are people that take seriously their own evolution, their fulfillment and joy in life. So this is what I like doing, and I work with like a big company, but also with young people that really want to have a very fulfilled, joyful life and meaningful for whatever success it's for them.
Nice. So, can you share a bit about your story? How did you get involved into leadership coaching?
Yes, so I was born in Italy, and well, I was born from a father that always showed me that impossible didn't exist. His dream was to work for a Ferrari in Formula One, and he managed to do that at a very young age. So for me, life was about achieving any dreams you might have had, and so I tried really everything that excited me, but above all, something that above all in the beginning was maybe giving me back a bit of admiration, appreciation for people that I love the most. In that way, I started really a career in the fashion world, first in Max Mara, and then I started. I've been I've been hired in Nike in Italy, and I started my career there. That was a career of 23 years. But there was a moment in my life where I was moved from Holland, from Nike Holland to Nike US, that apparently I had everything I wanted in my life because I had a good job, I had a good family, I had a beautiful white house, a lot of friends and everything, but inside I felt really empty. I felt not enough. I felt I had to prove. I had to fight every single day. And that was a moment that I met an executive coach, a leadership coach, and that in that exact moment I said, one day I'm gonna do what she does because she literally helped me to see life from a different perspective and to embrace the success and fulfillment so much but with more ease. And that is really what really inspired me to do that. So I continue to work in the company for another 10 years, coaching people there. And then eventually I left and I opened my business.
Mm, beautiful. Because we have worked together, I know like more details about this and how has been all the journey. So I feel like this really inspiring. How in that moment you saw like, yeah, I want to do this someday, and actually you get to do that exactly in the same place that you received that coaching from her, right?
It's really incredible. I really believe that when we see something that we admire so much in another person, most of the time we just see ourselves. We see a part of ourselves that has not bloomed yet. And that was for me, and that is for every one of us. So when we see something that we really admire, the reality is that there is probably a part of us that has not really that is not developed yet, and or we believe that we don't have. So looking inside, it's always the first step to really step into our power.
Yeah. Okay, so how do you think sharing your story has impacted your business?
Well, in general, I think that, well, I come from 23 years in Nike. So Nike is absolutely one of the best company in terms of storytelling. And the reality of storytelling is that when we tell our story, we really open the door for people to listen to us. Above all, when we are in our story, we are in our story with our emotions. Not just really we try to explain things, but we share things. And as human being, we want to listen. We don't want to be taught or said what to do. We just want to hear what is around us and understand what can be connected to our own story, to the thing that really matter for us. And so this is it. For me, sharing the story, it's really opening the door for people to listen to something that maybe can be important for them.
Mm, beautiful. So, and I know that for you, like people that you work with, they highlight how when they work with you, they feel seen and they feel that you are kind of holding a mirror for them to see their own potential that sometimes they are not able to see at the beginning of working with you. I wanted to ask you, do you feel that sharing your story is also a way for you to allow them to see you and see the context of who is behind this person helping them?
Absolutely, absolutely. Again, like I really believe, above all in coaching, we are exactly at the same level. So the more we can share the human behind any kind of job we do, and the more it's easier that people can understand any kind of concept or again can take advantage of anything we share for them for their life.
Mm. So, do you remember a specific moment when the feedback of someone, made you realize how important was that you have told your own story?
Yeah, I think at the beginning when we were creating also all this workshop for people for different groups, either they were younger or they were executive in companies, we had really quite a long agenda, and we always ended up cutting the agenda in half and just really working and presenting just a part of the subject we wanted to present in that day. And the reason why was that at the beginning we always were opening up with my story, and people were asking so many questions that then we realized that probably the story can become and is one of the most important part of any kind of um, proposal, interaction. And so we shifted completely our offer also and our presentation or our workshop where the stories and my stories had a bigger space or better, a bigger space for people to ask. And
Mm,
Reme, at the end, like it was the same also for me when I was younger. I was asking so many questions. Think about kids; they always ask question and question after question, and more than asking how do you do these things or how certain things need to be done. What was very important for me, it was always like, what was your experience? And I'm talking about like either being a mom or being a young businesswoman in a very masculine driven company, or being successful abroad, or having a husband that doesn't work and being the only one bringing actually the economics home, like so many things. So it was not really just to read a book where there was the ABC on how to do something, because that doesn't really click in people, and it didn't click in me. But the luxury to have somebody that went already in that path and ask, so how was for you? And it doesn't mean that the person need to do the exactly same things, but this can really open up to question, open up to possibilities, open up to ideas that maybe without a story you don't even think about.
Mm, yeah, yeah, I feel that too. And I know that you work with leaders in like in corporate and so on. And I feel because you have been there, you really know that environment. And I know that you use this idea of knowing the game. And it's like you sharing your story is also a way for them to see how you really understand. And it's not that you know the tools and the techniques and the things to help them. You also have the background to understand the environment that they are playing in, right?
Yeah, that's absolutely right. I mean, we work out a methodology that is called the wings way, no? The way to reconnect to your own power. And the first pillar, it's really like find your wings. We believe that everyone has wings, this incredible power that is really unique to each of us. But the second pillar, it's like learn the game. Because I really believe that in any environment that you might be in, either you are an entrepreneur or you are in a big company, there are always some rule of the game, that means like something you cannot control. Because if you start imagining that you are participating a game and that you can win and you can have fun, still you need to understand which are the rules, which are the things you cannot control, and so you don't really spend time and energy fighting those rules, wanting to change the rules, because it's not our job to change the rule. Our job is to win within that set of rules. And so the rules at the end, like they are, can be like politics in companies, they can be dynamics, power dynamics. So of course we can say this is not fair, and that's true. Like big corporate, they are absolutely not fair, but we can still win. And winning, it's very personal to each person. Winning is like how do you want to transform the environment around you, starting from yourself and then the people around you. And whatever it's important for you, you can do it, even in a big company. If you keep in mind that that's just a game, but within the game, you can win by transforming, by doing things that is very meaningful for you. And so that really helped me to see like every time I was falling, or maybe somebody was telling me some great ideas, or some suggestions, and then I gather all these like okay, so then at the end like these are some rule of the game, because when you enter in a company there are some rules that are written, but some that are not written are hidden. So the faster we learn them, the faster we can really have fun, enjoy, and win in the way that is really meaningful for us.
Mm. Yeah, it's like you for even for breaking the rules, you need to know the rules. So it's like learning about that environment and being able to know what is there for you to being able to expand or to explore. But first, you need to really understand what are you playing.
Yes, yes. You know,
Mm.
like when I was in Nike, like breaking the rules was really the thing, no? Breaking the rule was very important, because then at the end, if you think about what was meaningful for Nike was actually to be seen. And so, for example, by putting like some shoes at Wimbledon for Roger Federer with like the sole that was orange, in a way was breaking the rule, but the reality was a clarity about what Nike wanted the entire world to look at them. And so by doing that, yes, there was a break in the rule with consequences of a big fine, but paying a big fine was part of the game that Nike wanted to play. So clarity, I think it's very, very important. The problem come when we think that we want to break some rule just because they are not fair, and then we put all our energy there, but then at the end, the system kick us out. And when we are out from the system, we cannot impact anything.
Yeah, and I feel this is connected to your idea of the potential, no? Like what is your potential and how to go with your wings, finding your wings, and then exploring all the possibilities that what you can do.
Yeah, again, like I think it's very, very important to be clear what is our role and what we want to do, and not really to spend energy in something that it's not our. I mean, if we work for another company, it's not uh, our job to create the rule. I mean, it's
Mm,
as simple as that. We
yeah.
can create the rule if we want to create a different company, but if we want to stay in that company, we need to respect those rules and still doing meaningful work. And that is possible because I really believe that you can climb the ladder and in the meantime being the person you want to be.
Mm.
I think
Yeah,
that
and
is the big things that people sometimes they think that they need to sell their soul to the devil in order actually to climb the ladder, and it's absolutely not like that because maybe you can do it, but then it's very stressful and hard and absolutely not fulfilling.
Mm. Yeah, and I connecting to this idea of the meaningful work. I know that this is something key to the way that you approach the work that you do and how you help others. It's like how for you, like that finding your meaningful work, something meaningful to you. How do you think sharing your story is helping convey that idea of how meaningful is for you the work that you do?
Like I really believe that we all came in this world with a set of tools, and I call them our wings, our mix of talents, passion, and values that are very unique to us. And sometimes we see other people wings and not our because we always compare ourselves to others, and so we lose a bit of power by doing that. But because we've been gifted with this incredible power, the moment we start accessing to it, we also are on purpose. On purpose, it means like to use, to fly, to use our wings. Because when we use our inner power, we give the big gift to this world. We inspire other people to find their unique purpose and power, and we support people in a way that is really very natural to us and is. So I really believe that every time we are fighting something, that's not our path. Our path it's really and flowing. So for me, for example, when I coach, I'm really feel center. I'm really feel at ease because I'm there with all myself, with all my wings, and I try to access everything I need because every person in front of me needs something different in order to switch on their light, and I don't switch on the light. I just try to keep my light switched on in order for them to find their.
Mm, yeah, that's a really nice approach where you are empowering them. It's not that you are the one doing the thing for them, but helping to find their way to do that. So that's beautiful.
Yeah, I really believe that at the end, like we're not really, everyone has their own time to find their own potential, to let go some of limiting beliefs and so on. The only things we can do is to be ourselves and have actually leave the space for people to do their journey while we
Mm.
are doing our.
Yeah. Okay, so you know that the name of the podcast is Who Cares About My Story? So, what would you say to someone that is wondering that what who will care about their story?
I really believe again like that we are mirror of each other. So sometimes I heard even people saying like, oh, maybe you are telling too much about yourself. or other people say, well, who cares about like my stories and so on. And I think that already there is a gift. Like when we think something like that, there is already a gift there. That means that we are not seeing our story. We are not really valuing our story. So if we don't value our story, how can we think that other people can do that?
Mm.
How can we think that people can see us? So I think the first step, it's not about telling our story. The first step is to see our story. It's to be compassionate towards ourselves. Is to really be and fall in love for every single part of our story, of ourselves, and to see if there is a part of us or a part of our stories that still hold us back with some shame or guilt. And so after we've done that work, that is the moment actually to share that story. Because if we don't really tell something, that means that the story is still on us.
Mm.
The fear, the shame. The moment actually we forgiven ourselves, moment that we really, really connected to ourselves, then that is the moment that we just want to share our story because the story doesn't really hold that pain anymore, doesn't hold that shame anymore. And we know that our story can help somebody else. So I think the
Mm.
work is very internal before appearing external. I tell you, like for example, I've been with bulimia for like probably 25 years, no? So that was a very hidden eating disorder. Nobody could see. I was really this successful businesswoman, flying all around the world, working with like very famous athletes and everything. Everyone being jealous about my life and my work. But inside, I was still with like this incredible and mean disease that is bulimia that nobody was seeing. So the moment that I could really start telling this story was the moment that I completely managed to heal myself from this.
Mm.
I would have never been able to tell my story if I still was actually not forgiving myself about that, or not giving myself the permission to get out from that gate once forever. And
Mm.
sometimes we can even tell our story when we are still going through that. But because we started to see the light, we started to see actually the power and the gift that the story has for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel that it's different for different people, but something that I have seen overall is how when you are sharing that part of your story is like somehow that's something good for you as well. Like
Exactly.
sharing that is something
Yeah,
good, either because it's part of the process of getting over it, or either because it's over and then now you are ready to share your experience and somehow inspire or help others. So yeah, I feel like it's not just in the case of personal brand story, it's not just helpful for your business, for your audience, but also for yourself to
absolutely.
understand the context of why you do what you do and why you are interested in working with a certain group of people and how you are connected to them and so on.
Absolutely.
Nice. I wanted to ask you, when you were deciding what to share and what not, at some point you decided to got help to work on your stories and we have worked together on your personal brand story. I am curious to know about what made you do that, like decide to go and get help in shaping how you share your stories.
I think that the big your gift at the end is really that it's that you help people to translate the story in a language that is a bit like more easy to understand
Mm-hmm.
for a diverse audience and so on. Sometimes we can have something very clear in our mind, but when we start talking specifically with you, that you are very good in this, we realize that maybe there is a part of our story that we don't really value that much. We don't think that is particular or can benefit other people. And you see something, and then working together, we can really package in a way that can support other people even more and can become even more clear.
Mm. Yeah, I feel that this is something that even for myself, my own stories, getting someone to help me to go through that is helpful because we are so in our own narratives and that we don't see, we sometimes overlook certain things. And from outside is like, yeah, that actually give a lot of context about who you are and how you are in the world.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, so for a lot of people that are might be listening to this, they are somehow navigating a transition in their business. So they are somehow changing how they position themselves or the type of work that they are doing. And they feel this lack of clarity. You have been going through some big transitions in through your journey. So can you tell us about your own experience of deciding how you communicate those changes to the people that are maybe in your audience or people that know about what you do?
Uh, so the question is about really how you communicate your changes to people. I think it's important to understand why. Why do you want to communicate the changes to
Mm,
people? It's I think that Reme, I think everything starts inside. When we are clear about what is the message we want to give and why we want to give that message, everything is much easier. Everything is much easier. So for that reason, I think like spending time and hold some space for us to listen to our intuition, it's always the starting point. Listen, now there are so many podcasts. There are with social media, we can have like hundred of very knowledgeable people telling us what's the right things to do exactly in this moment. But the point is that if we listen outside before listening inside, it's really a mess. We have also artificial intelligence now. And if we start using this tool before asking ourselves the question, then it's really a nightmare. So even in this case, how we want to share our story, I think the first step is always to hold space, to ask questions to ourselves. You are very good by sending a questionnaire. I created a book where for 90 days people they ask themselves some different question in order actually to get into their power and purpose, because when you are connected to your power and purpose, that everything becomes so much more clear and easy, even to tell your story, because your why is what driving and not the how.
mm. Yeah, yeah, 100%. When you have clarity in why you are doing something, everything is like the clarity will be easier to find. I agree on that. Um, okay, so I like to do a question to all my guests, and it's like, what part of your personal brand story surprises people the most?
Maybe it was really that when I was really working in tennis and I was really every single month traveling around the world, going to slam, and I was very passionate about tennis and so on. And I have this like beautiful life in the US, and I was promoted. And so also from a company point of view, I was really in a very good level, and the company was keep on promoting me. But still, there was a voice inside of me that was saying, "What if? What if
Mm,
you open your own company? What if you let the company Nike and US and you really believe, together with my husband, by the way, um, to your company, to something that you want for you for to do for you, where you can actually set the rule of the game and where you can really say yes or no to some work." And so probably that was the moment when some people were saying like, "But why did you leave in that moment?" But sometimes living it's much easier than stay, because there is that intuition that is so clear.
mm. Yeah, and it's like I feel like this connecting back to the beginning, like the idea of all the possibilities and thinking that you have possibilities to do things. So I feel that that is a powerful question, like the what if is such a powerful question to consider, like it's opening all the doors of different possibilities.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. I don't know if there is any message or important question that we haven't covered and it's something that you feel is important for the listener to consider, and a message that is important for you to share with them.
Maybe, I mean, I think one thing that is very important that like whoever is listening, being really aware that wherever they are, whatever they feel, they are just in the right place, and they are right in the right place, and that they have everything they need in order actually to open the door to even more possibility or step into a chapter of their life where they feel even more confident and where they really attract more abundance. It's just important that with just this belief, they can start looking for those resources inside of them or asking the right question to the right people that can support them. But without that belief, then it's really difficult to take any step in order actually to evolve. And the belief, it's something that we can put in our mind. And so again, like holding space for some questions and some care, I think it's very, very important in any time in our life.
Thank you. Thank you so much for this insight. And for people that are curious to learn more about you and your work, I know that you are releasing at the moment of this recording this piece of work that will help them to also do this internal work. So, how they can learn more about you?
Well, we have a group of young women that are helping me with my social media. So we are posting every week in coach.adri with Y. And then in LinkedIn also, Adriana Caliri, we post several things, or in the website, in our website. I mean, you can write it down.
Yeah, I will. I will. Yeah, I will add
Yeah.
the links. Yes. So thank you so much for this. It has been lovely to have you and having this conversation. I'm really grateful for the work that you have done in the past and for having you here, sharing your thoughts and your insights. And I feel that this is really inspiring for people to listen to that idea of how you can find your wings. So thank you for that.
Thank you very much to you, and thank you very much for the incredible work you are doing to support like a lot of people to really share their story for the benefit of themselves and others.
Thank you.
Un bacio.
Thanks for tuning in to Who Cares About My Story, the podcast on how sharing your personal brand story can impact your business. If you found this episode valuable, consider subscribing or leaving a review. Your feedback means a lot. Did something resonate with you today? Please share your thoughts on the podcast platform or on your socials. I would love to hear from you and give you a shout out. Just tag me on Instagram at Reme Mancera. I can't wait for you to meet our next guest. Until then, remember, your story is relevant and worth telling.